Hi, welcome back. If this is your first time here, hello, I'm Michelle the Irritable Vegan. I'm here to share my vegan low FODMAP story and hopefully take some of the BS out of IBS. Now today I've got a what I eat in a day video for you, but with a twist. So rather than walk you through the straight recipes, I'm going to be talking about my portion sizes and food choices from a point of view of trying to avoid FODMAP stacking across 3 meals and 2 snacks on an average day. And just a quick disclaimer here, this isn't your typical follow me around and see what I'm eating in real time type video. You're going to see some examples of old and new recipes presented purely from a FODMAP stacking point of view. And it's my hope that by seeing these visually represented in this way, it's going to give you some ideas of how you can best incorporate these principles into your own daily routine. I'll be referencing the Monash app throughout this video, and the most practical way for you to make full use of this information is to follow along with me in the app. If you haven't yet downloaded the app, you're going to find some links down below. None of those are affiliate links, and it's purely because I'm referencing Monash as they're my preferred source of low FODMAP information. I'm in no way sponsored or endorsed by Monash University. I think we've just about covered everything now, so let's get into it. Breakfast begins with blueberries. A 40-gram serving is safe, but as blueberries are a source of fructans, I'll be reducing them to half a portion of 20 grams in order to be able to eat a full portion of cereal. Monash recommend eating a minimum of 2 portions of fruit per day. To 125 grams of coconut yogurt, I added 1 tablespoon of rice protein powder. Neither have upper limits or FODMAP specified, so we won't worry about them stacking. To this, I added 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, which is half a safe serving, again with no FODMAP specified. To the protein yogurt mix, I added a 15-gram safe serve of cornflakes, and this was a full portion of fructans, which is why I halved my portion of blueberries to avoid stacking the two. I topped it off with a 12-gram safe serving of almonds, which is 1 full Goss portion. Originally, I planned to have pecans, but as these are a source of fructans, I switched to almonds instead. So that was breakfast, and if all that went by in a bit of a blur, here's a quick breakdown for you. So hopefully you're starting to see how you would have been able to tailor that to suit your own tastes, tolerances and preferences. You could have easily swapped the blueberries for a FODMAP-free serving of strawberries, switched out the cornflakes for a safe serve of porridge oats which contain fructans and Goss, and then reduce the nuts to half a portion to stay within the 1.5 servings range. And something really interesting I've discovered that's definitely worth mentioning here is that I've recently turned off the filters mode within the Monash app. This now means that I'm seeing multiple brands and varieties of the same foods across various countries. So for example, in the US, Kellogg's cornflakes are actually Monash approved at larger servings of 28 grams with no upper limits or FODMAPs listed. Which brings me to another important point, which is that we always need to be mindful of the fact that we're on a low FODMAP, not a no FODMAP diet. So if your symptoms are well managed, you're happy with your progress and you're confident that you're doing everything right, then you don't need to overly concern yourself or get stressed out about the effects of FODMAP stacking. If, however, you're the type of person that regularly experiences flare-ups, despite the fact that you feel that you've done everything right, then I'm hoping that this video is going to be of the most help to you. And the reason I'm mentioning this here is because as low FODMAP vegans, most of the food we eat is likely to contain some level of FODMAPs. But for the majority of us, we only really need to concern ourselves with those foods where Monash lists an upper limit, or the foods whose portion sizes are quite close to the FODMAP safe servings. The general rule of thumb when it comes to FODMAP stacking is to limit each meal to no more than 1.5 portions of any particular FODMAP and to allow at least 3 hours in between eating. And just going back to the topic of cornflakes, gluten-free cornflakes have a much higher safe serving of up to 50 grams. So if you're really missing out on a decent portion of cereal in the morning, then in this instance, going gluten-free might be the best way for you. And speaking of decent portion sizes, it must be time for a snack. So for our mid-morning snack, use a safe serving of crusty low FODMAP bread. Something like a sharp panini roll which contains a serving of fructans would be perfect. Brush the bread both sides with olive oil and sprinkle with salt and pepper. Toast under a hot grill for 2 minutes per side until golden. For the sauce, we'll use the flesh of half a chopped tomato, seeds removed, 1/3 cup of almond milk, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of corn flour, half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, 1/8 teaspoon of black salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of turmeric, blended until smooth. This sauce is virtually FODMAP free, with the exception of the Dijon mustard, which contains GOS and fructans, but doesn't become moderate for those until we reach 230 grams. Taking into account the small quantity and the threshold margins for the purpose of calculating FODMAP stacking, we're safe to assume we don't need to worry in this case. Serve the sauce hot alongside the dippy soldiers. This is a great prep ahead snack for anyone with access to a toaster or microwave. And now it's time for lunch. Beginning with a 42 gram safe serve of canned chickpeas, which is 1 portion of GOS. We'll add chopped tomato, spring onion greens, nutritional yeast, 1 tablespoon of homemade tofu mayo, half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, dried dill, salt and pepper, and here's how all that stacks up. We're going to serve the chickpea mayo alongside a salad of lettuce, cucumber, carrots, red cabbage sauerkraut, and a jacket potato. For this delicious filling meal, we're using one of my favourite low FODMAP tactics, which is to create at least one meal of the day that focuses on mainly FODMAP-free foods or quantities of highly flavoured ingredients that contain very small amounts of FODMAPs. This way, not only can you create satisfying meals with decent portion sizes, but it's a great way to include tons of variety and fresh veggies into your diet. Finishing off with an optional half a portion of pumpkin seeds, which equals a small amount of additional fructans. So how are you doing so far? Are you enjoying the variety? Are you surprised by the quantity and the selection of foods available? Are the stacking portions making sense? If any of this is unclear, then please don't hesitate to leave your questions in the comments below. And if you've been watching really closely, you'll have realised that we're leaving at least 3 hours in between every meal. Now, this is a really good habit to get into to help reduce the likelihood of FODMAP stacking. However, it's only feasible if you're eating filling, satisfying, nutritionally and calorically dense foods at every meal, which in itself is a good enough reason to make sure that you're not applying any self-limiting beliefs or unnecessary additional exclusions on what could already be seen as a restricted diet. And another thing I think that we should mention is, despite the fact that many healthful salad veggies are FODMAP free, many people with IBS can't tolerate the excess quantities of fibre, particularly in raw vegetables. And if this applies to you, I really encourage you to start thinking outside of the box and looking for ways that you can incorporate more vegetables into your day. Now, some simple swaps you could make that potentially could have a huge impact on your digestion include not eating high fibre vegetables on an empty stomach, removing the peel or skin, dicing, grating, blending, or really finely chopping your vegetables and making sure that you chew really thoroughly to begin the digestion process from the mouth down. And if none of this improves your ability to eat or digest raw vegetables or salads, then I simply recommend eating them cooked. Since I began the low FODMAP diet, I've discovered that many ingredients that I'd previously only ever eaten raw, such as lettuce, cucumber, spring onion greens, radish and sauerkraut, are all just as delicious when eaten cooked. After such a filling lunch, let's keep this afternoon snack light and refreshing. We'll begin by brewing a strong cup of rooibos tea, which is not only delicious but has no FODMAPs listed in the Monash app. Allow the tea to steep for 10 minutes. Into a separate cup, mix 1 tablespoon of cacao powder with 1 to 2 tablespoons of warm water to make a smooth liquid. Add the cacao mix to the tea and add 1 tablespoon of chia seeds and a handful of fresh mint leaves. Leave it in the fridge to steep overnight. This makes it a great option for taking to work or school. The next day, remove the mint leaves and add maple syrup to taste. Serve with ice and a splash of almond milk. And just like that, we've made it to tea. We'll start with the marinade with 2 tablespoons of tomato puree, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Use a splash of water to loosen into a smooth sauce. Then to the marinade, add 200 grams of firm pressed tofu and fold in carefully, ensuring the tofu is well coated but not mushed up into pieces. Set aside to marinate for at least 30 minutes. You could also prep this the day before. Heat 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil and add 1 tablespoon of FODMAP safe curry powder, half a teaspoon of asafoetida, half a teaspoon of turmeric and stir into the oil for 30 seconds. Add 200 grams of diced potato and 150 grams of diced carrots and stir well into the seasoned oil. Once mixed, add a squeeze of lime juice and 1 cup of water. Simmer on medium-high with the lid on for 15 minutes until the potatoes are almost cooked. Add 1 tablespoon of fresh grated ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of dried chili flakes, 150 grams of diced red bell pepper, 30 grams of spring onion greens and 200 grams of diced common tomatoes. Bring everything up to a fast simmer for 5 minutes. Reduce the heat to low and add 200 grams of diced pineapple and the marinated tofu. Give it a good stir and add 60 grams of canned coconut milk and 150 grams of chopped kale. Gently push the kale into the curry sauce and simmer on low for a final 5 minutes, stirring frequently. Once everything's fully cooked, turn off the heat and add salt, pepper and a pinch of garam masala to taste. This recipe makes 2 large FODMAP safe portions. I served mine with a cup of cooked brown rice. The stacking guidelines given have been divided by 2 to give the values for 1 portion. Depending on appetite, you may wish to reduce the portions further, which would obviously also reduce the FODMAP load. This recipe is relatively low in FODMAPs considering its generous serving size and is a great way to introduce more fruit into your daily intake. So what do you think? Are you surprised by the variety or appalled by the portion sizes? Whatever your thoughts on this video and on FODMAP stacking in general, don't keep them to yourself. Please share them with us in the comments below. If you've liked this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And as always, thanks so much for watching and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.